Alright, hello and welcome to episode 7 of the SOC Level 2 pathway of TryHackMe, and in today's episode we're going to be continuing down our Advanced Splunk module, and today's video is going to be on Splunk data manipulation, which I already have loaded and ready to go. So this is going to be one of the subscriber only rooms that are available in TryHackMe, so you do actually need a subscription, a paid subscription for this, but there's a discount link in the description below, so that'll make it a little bit easier for you. And apart from that, you could just watch this video and get your information that way. You can always download and install Splunk on your own computer and follow along in this video. So there's a lot of good different ways that you can get use out of this content. That being said, let's jump into the introduction of this room. Okay, the big thing about this room, and I mean, as the name implies, it is about data manipulation, and data manipulation includes all of these things. So processing, parsing, manipulation of data are all Splunk, they're all crucial for Splunk and for extracting meaningful insights and enabling effective analysis of the data that's generated from computers or machines or different endpoints and things like that. These capabilities are particularly valuable in identifying and responding to security threats and investigating incidents, monitoring system health, so on and so forth. These are the objectives that we have for our video today. So we want to know how events are parsed in Splunk. We want to know the importance of configuration files like inputs.conf, which is conf basically stands for configuration, transform.conf, and props.conf. How to extract custom fields and apply them to filters, and how to identify the timestamp in event logs. The prerequisites for this are regex. So this is for regular expressions. I haven't actually done a video on this room, but I've done a lot of studying on regular expressions when I was studying for Python and things like that. So I'm pretty familiar with regular expressions. So I'm not going to include that room in this video. I'll probably just do a video on that room separately, just so it's available for you. And then of course there's a Splunk basics room, which we've already done, and you should have access to this video already. If you haven't watched it, I would recommend that you go watch it. It's not part of the Advanced Splunk module. It's actually part of something that we did in SOC Level 1. So you can just go on the channel and search for Splunk, and then you'll be able to find all the videos that exist on Splunk. And just to give you a quick demo on how to do that, you basically come to the channel. This is what it looks like when you land on the channel, and then right here there's a little search thing. What is that? A magnifying glass. And then right there you can just type in Splunk, and it'll bring up all the videos that we got on Splunk. And so the earlier the video, the most, the more basic it is. So if you actually go to the very early videos on Splunk, then you'll probably find the ones that are most basic about Splunk. So that's really where you can find all this stuff. And then of course you can just go through the rest of the videos as we got them here, because there's a lot of videos on this channel and we keep adding videos to this channel. So this is probably a good time to also mention, if you haven't subscribed or if you're not a part of our community, this would be a really good time to subscribe and turn on notification bell, like the video, drop a comment, all that stuff, just so you can join the community and have fun with us as we go along this pathway of becoming ethical hackers and security analysts and so on and so forth. That being said, we are going to now officially jump into this room. So the first thing is going to be the scenario and the instructions for the lab. Okay, so the scenario is this. We are John and we're working as a SOC analyst at CyberT. We've been presented with a scenario where one of our clients needs to ingest some logs from a custom source. So Splunk needs to be properly configured to parse and transform the logs appropriately. And some of the issues being highlighted are the event breaking, which means you need to configure Splunk to break the events properly. Multi-line events, configure Splunk to configure multi-line events properly. Masking, so some logs contain sensitive data to comply with the PCI DSS, which is for payment card industry. So if you're collecting any kind of credit card or debit card information on your website or at your store, you need to comply with this regulation. So all these things need to be masked. The credit card numbers must be masked to avoid any kind of violation. And then extracting custom fields. So in the web log, some fields are redundant and need to be removed, and then we need to be able to find everything that's relevant to us. So I've already connected to the lab, so it should all be ready for us to go, but it usually takes a couple of minutes. As it says right here, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes for it to run. So once I have connected to this, I can just click that. And then now the first question right here is how many Python scripts are present in the downloads scripts directory. So I'm just going to open up my terminal, and from here we're going to see what we can find. So let's see. All right, there we go. This is what we got over here. And these two are irrelevant to us. This is 1, 2, and 3 scripts. So we got 3 scripts available to us in this directory. Sweet, good stuff. And we are ready to actually go into the tasks here. So next is going to be Splunk data processing overview. All right, one of the good things about Splunk, among many things, there's a lot of great things about Splunk and SIMs in general. But one of the really good things about it is that they parse data and they extract the relevant fields of it and transform it into something that's readable to us. It's called normalization. SIM software normalizes log data so that we can access it by clicking on just a couple of buttons inside Splunk and just being able to find things that have already been parsed for us. So the way that it does that, and this is, I guess, uses one of the pieces of it is using the props.configuration file. Is that step one, it understands the data format. So first we need to understand the data format that you want to parse. So there's various formats like CSV, JSON, XML, syslog, and a lot of other things. And depending on what you use, you can choose the format of the data source and the relevant fields that you want to extract. Then you identify the source type. It represents the format of the data that's being indexed. It helps Splunk apply the appropriate parsing rules. If your data source does not have predefined source type, you can create a custom one. So for example, what this means is that CSV stands for comma separated values, meaning all the values are separated by commas. XML is by tags, so there's brackets at the beginning of it and brackets at the end of it. JSON is very similar to, it's like tables almost, that they've been broken down and organized that way. So all of these things are different formats of information. So you need to choose for Splunk so that Splunk knows how it's going to parse the data, because data that's separated by commas is very different from data that's separated by tags. So that's important to know. Once you can do that, then you configure the props.configuration file, and that defines the data parsing settings for specific source types or data sources. It's in the Splunk home etc or etc system local directory, and this is what it looks like right here. So this would be the source and the path to the data. So this is the actual path to the log file that you want to look at. And then the source type is going to be the type of source type that we're going to be putting. So the path to the data is the path of the data, and then the source type is the name of the source type that you want to assign to it. And in our particular case, now we're going to be defining the extractions from it. So you define regular expressions or use pre-built extraction techniques to parse different fields from the data. Here's an example using source type and then extract field name 1, field name 2, and then reg expressions 1 and reg expressions 2. So you replace the source type with the actual source type, and then field name 1 and 2 are just the variables. So in our example, this is going to be 1 variable and 2 variables, etc. While regular expressions 1 and 2 are the regular expressions used to match and extract these things. So these aren't going to be, it's obviously not going to be regular expression 1. It's literally the regular expression itself. There's a format to it. You'll see in a little bit. And then we have save and restart Splunk. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then verify and search the data. So once it restarts, you can actually search and verify that the data is being parsed correctly. And you can use the extracted fields to filter and analyze the data effectively. So that is how the whole thing works, just so you can understand the behind the scenes of it. So these are the configuration files that we're going to be diving into now. Splunk uses several configuration files. This is the full list of their configuration files on their website, and you can see that is a pretty big list of configuration files here. The ones that we're going to be dealing with mainly are going to be these. So we have the inputs, and this defines the data inputs and how to collect data from different sources. And then you have the example where it says, suppose that you want to monitor a specific log file, and you can configure inputs as such. So you're monitoring the path to the log file, and then the source type is going to be my source type. Then you have the props configuration, specifies parsing rules, as we kind of already discussed. So suppose you have a custom source type named this, and you want to extract fields using reg expressions, you can define them here. So my source type and then extract field 1 regular expression, extract field 2 regular expression. We have the transforms config file. It allows you to define field transformations and enrichments on indexed events. So let's say you want to add a new field based on existing field values. You can do this here. So you add a new field. It's a regex field, existing field, dot asterisk, which basically means any extension to a file. So the wildcard character means that anything. So it could be .txt, .config, .pcap, whatever. And then the format, new field, yada yada. Indexes.config, or .conf, manages the configuration of indexes in Splunk, including storage retention policies and access control. Suppose you want to create a new index named myIndex with specific settings, you can configure indexes. We're going to be doing this in an exercise, I'm sure of it. So if a lot of this doesn't seem like it's making sense to you, because to me also it's like this is the first time that I'm going through this information, but based on the information that and all the experience that I've gathered, I know that there's going to be applications of this. So there's only so much you can learn from just reading through these things and try to make sense of whatever this is. So if it doesn't make sense right now, it's all good. Don't worry about it. It'll make sense in a little bit. But these are just examples of what it would look like. So my index, the path of it is going to be this specific path. The cold path is going to be that path. The thawed path is going to be that path. And then the total data size in megabytes is going to be 100,000 megabytes. And then we have the outputs configuration, specifies the destination and settings for sending index data to various outputs, such as remote Splunk instances or third-party systems. So imagine you want to forward your index data to remote Splunk indexer. You can configure the outputs.config file. And TCP out is going to be this, TCP out : my indexers. And then the server is going to be the remote indexer server at 9997 port. Then we have the authentication, manages authentication settings and user authentication methods. So you want to enable LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol authentication for Splunk user. You can configure authentication configurations. These are just a few examples of the various configuration files in Splunk, obviously. And then we have stanzas. So Splunk configuration contains various stanza configurations. And this is actually something that it's like a musical term. And I think it's kind of relevant as well here, that define how data is processed and indexed. These stanzas have a certain purpose, and it's important to understand what these are and how they are used. So this is what, these are the common stanzas. So source type specifies the configuration for a specific source type. And so Apache : access is the parsing and indexing settings for Apache access logs. So it allows you to define how the data from that source type should be parsed and indexed. Transforms, it applies field transformations to extracted events. You can reference custom or predefined field transformation configurations to modify or create new fields based on the extracted data. So transforms dash myTransform equals myField1, myField2, and it applies the transformation named myTransform to these fields. So you would have this pre-configured, because this is a pre-configured transformation that has already been done, and then you're applying that pre-configured transformation to these fields. Report defines the extraction rules for specific fields using regular expressions. It associates a field name with a regular expression pattern to extract desired values. This stanza helps in parsing and extracting structured fields from unstructured or semi-structured data. And so report field 1 equals pattern 1, and it extracts field 1 using the pattern 1 regular expression, and then defines extraction rules for fields using regular expressions and assigns them specific names. It is similar to the report stanza, but it allows more flexibility in defining custom fields. So extract field 1, and then this is the pattern. So it extracts field 1 using that pattern and then regular expression, and assigns it to the field name. So this one, it extracts the field, and then we can designate what we want the output name to be. So that'll be the field name, and then that'll be the pattern that'll be applied to it. Time prefix, so the prefix before the timestamp value in events, this is used to identify the position of the timestamp within the event. So timestamp, and then identifies the prefix. So that's basically a time format. is the format of the timestamp in the event that allows Splunk to correctly extract and parse timestamps based on a format. And so this could be a format. This is a regular expression. So year, month, date, hour, minute, second, specifies the timestamp format as year, month, date, hour, minute, second, etc. Line breaker, a regular expression pattern that identifies line breaks within events. This is used to split events into multiple lines. And this is the regular expression for line breakers. Should line merge, determines whether lines should be merged into a single event or treated as separate events. It controls the behavior of line merging based on specified regular expression pattern in the line breaker stanza. So should line merge equal false, disables line merging. I guess it would either be the Boolean false or true. That's really the only value that it can have. Break only before defines a regular expression pattern that marks the beginning of an event. This is used to identify specific patterns in the data that indicate the start of an event. So break only before, and this is the pattern, and it identifies the start of a new event that begins with a date in the format of year, month, and date. Break only after specifies something that ends the event, so that this one was the beginning of the event, this is the end of an event, and it's used to identify patterns in the data that indicate the completion of an event. And then break only after end. So as long as there's end in it, then it'll break after that. And then KV mode is for key value, used for extracting field, and the available modes are also auto, non-simple, multi, and JSON. JSON is a key value type of a formatting. And this stanza determines how fields are extracted from the events based on key value pairs. It helps parsing structured data where fields are represented in a key value format. So KV mode JSON enables JSON key value mode. And these are the usage of stanzas in the props.conf and provide a better understanding of how they can be applied to configure data parsing. So in the next acts, we're actually going to be using these to better understand what's going on. So which stanza is used in the configuration files to break the events after the provided pattern? And it's going to be the break only after. Which stanza is used to specify the pattern for the line break within events? And we already have that here as well. So line breaker. Which configuration file is used to define transformations and enrichments in indexed fields? So we can find that up here, and it is the name transforms.conf. And which configuration file is used to define inputs and ways to collect data from different sources? And that would be inputs.conf. And we are good here. So there we go. Now we got our basic understanding of things. So we should be able to now use some of these things. So now I'm going to start Splunk and have some fun with it. All right, to start it, we actually have to go to the command line first and run this the start command once we're inside the Splunk directory, and then from there we can actually go to the web address to get access to the portal. And then we're gonna use the apps to create a simple application and go through some fun commands here. So most likely what I'm going to end up doing, just to kind of make this a little bit easier, is I'm going to open this in a new window, in a maximized window, so it's a little bit easier for us to see. And then from there I'll just have the instructions on my second monitor, and then I will just run through the instructions. Instead of reading through the instructions, I'm just going to run through the instructions and apply all the instructions, and we'll be able to see everything on the screen itself. So first thing first, we wanted to go to the opt Splunk. So we're going to do cd opt Splunk, and we'll be here, and then we're going to do bin Splunk start. All right, that's going to run. And let's see, I think I need to do sudo. Okay, so it worked, and I had to do sudo bin Splunk start in order for it to work. Now I should be able to go to my web browser and visit my IP, which is this thing right here. And it's basically at the IP address that they gave me at the 8000 port. And there we go, it's loading, perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna create a Splunk app. So I'm just gonna open this up in full screen just to make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to turn this into a new window, and I'm going to drag this off screen so I can, let's see, I'm going to drag it off right here. Perfect. Okay, cool. There we go. And boom, and open this up. Boom. All right, here we go. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create an app. And to be able to do this, we're going to click on apps right here, and then click on the create app. So it's going to be right in the corner, create app, and it'll pop up. So it says fill in the details about the new app that you want to create. The new app will be placed in the Splunk Etsy apps. So it's going, I'm just going to do, I'm going to copy exactly what they made. So it's going to be the data app. The folder name is also going to be data app, which is going to be inside of this. So it's going to be in this location. Splunk Home Etsy apps is where it's going to be. Version we'll do 10.0 is what they did basically. Author will be S. Description is going to be simple app for testing. And template will be bare bones. Upload asset is none, so we're just going to save that. That's what the instructions. So encounter the following error. The version 10.8 is valid. Use the version format. For example, 1.00. Is that what they did? Oh, they did. So it's 1.00. Okay, so my bad. So this is not 10.0. It's 1.00. All right, there we go. Now a new Splunk app has been created successfully and it'll be shown on the apps page. Then we're going to click on launch app. So here's our new app at the very top. Going to click on launch app. There's no activity that's been logged, so we're going to generate some sample logs here. And the way that we do that is we're going to go here, we'll do index equals main, and if I press enter, we'll see if anything happens. I think this is going to show us that there's nothing here. Yeah, so there's nothing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate some data. Okay, perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our apps directory inside of our terminal. So let me go pull this up here. And I have the CD. It's going to be opt splunk etc apps is where we are. And inside of this, we have all of these nice applications. Look at that. And I think mine should be in here too, no? I just made one. So yep, it's right at the top, buddy. Look at that. It's my app. That's my app right there. Okay, cool. So the inside of the data app is going to have, okay, I don't have permissions. Data app command not found. Oh, whoops. Sudo ls data app. Okay, there we go. I have to run it with sudo. Interesting. Okay. So there we go. These are the contents of my current data app directory. That's all we got right now. So there's going to be the bin, there's the app.configuration file, which I don't see yet. And then the default, and then we have the local, and that's it. And there's the metadata. So based on the instructions that I see here, it's just to show you, says that there's supposed to be an app.configuration file, but there isn't. So we're going to create a script to generate the sample log files, and I guess it's just going to be basic print script kind of a thing. And then yeah, it's going to print it and it should generate something, and then we'll run the rest of it. So let me go back here and let's see, create a Python script to generate sample logs. That's the step that we're on. Okay, so just as a heads up, I don't know if this was part of the instructions, but I had to do this in order to be able to even get in here. So I'm going to show you what was happening to me before. Let me see how far up I can go. So I was inside of the apps directory, and I was trying to get inside of our app that we created, so data app, and I kept doing it, and it said permission denied. I was sudo cd data app, and it said the command isn't found. And so I looked up the full list of the applications because I wanted to see the permissions of the directory. And in the permissions of the directory, it says that there's no executable permission for the regular user, which is where we're at. So this is the creator, this is the group, and then this is the regular user, and the regular user has 0 permissions on this particular thing. So the first thing that I did was I was like, okay, I'm just going to change the permissions of it. So chmod is to change permissions, and I wanted to add executable permission to that, and it said operation is not permitted, so I did sudo chmod and I added it, and it finally gave me executable permissions of the data app. And then from there I was able to cd into it. I was actually finally able to get into this thing. And then same process, I wanted to get into the bin directory, but I had no permission. So when I went right here and I just did bin, we looked at the executable permission. There was no executable permission, so I just changed the permissions of it to give me executable permissions, and then I did sudo ls, and I was finally able to come inside of the bin directory. So now I'm going to create the Python file that they told us to make, just as a sample Python file. Do a touch first. This is just in case like this actually happens to you. So sudo touch sample logs.py. So now I should be able to see that I have a sample logs. So if I do sudo ls.la, it'll show me that the sample logs.py file does not have executable permissions. So now I need to change the permissions of that. So now I should have permission to be able to execute that, which means now I can go in here. So I need to also add write permissions plus w sample logs.py. Let's see. Hey, it wrote it. All right. Okay, so I added write permissions. I added read permission or execute permissions, excuse me. And I was able to do it. So now I'm going to do sudo python3 sample logs.py, and it worked, and it actually printed onto our screen. This is a sample log. Okay, cool. So we finally have our sample log. Great. Now let's go create an inputs configuration file. Okay, it says that we need to create the input configuration file inside the default directory, which I'm guessing is the data app directory. That would be the default directory for everything. So we have all of the stuff in here, and I have to change the command for this too. So chmod plus x default. Okay, there we go. I don't need to do sudo for that. I just do cd for the change directory. And now let's do lsla, and we have our basic configuration files in here. We don't have an inputs configuration file, so what we need to do is we need to create it. So I'm going to do a touch command to create my configuration file. Sudo touch inputs config. There it is. This is crazy that I have to like do sudo in front of everything, honestly. But whatever. So there's the inputs. So now I'm going to do sudo chmod plus x and w, x and w for execute and write. And I'll just do whatever, r as well, inputs.conf, and we have that. So sudo lsla, and I have the, okay. All right, so that being said, now I can go into it and I can modify it. So nano inputs.conf. So make sure that you do sudo in front of that. And then what we need to do is we need to add the following content into it and save it. And so we're going to add the script path. And so it's going to be script and then 1, 2, 3, and then op. All right, that was the full path of our sample logs Python file that we just created. And then we're going to add the rest of this. So index is going to be main, and source is going to be test log, source type is going to be testing, and interval is going to be 5. So the configuration picks the output file sample and sends it to Splunk with the index main every 5 seconds. That's what we just did right here. So it's going to send it to the main index, and it's going to create the test log, which is basically the source name that it's going to have. source type is going to be testing, and it's going to send it every 5 seconds, and it's going to send this to that, from what I understand. So let's hope, here's hoping that this is actually gonna, that it's actually gonna work. So let me see, I'm just gonna copy this just for the hell of it, just in case it decides to mess with me. So boom, enter, and it wrote the line, so we're all good, baby. Okay, so now we have our configuration file. It's gonna run every 5 seconds. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to restart Splunk. So we gotta go to our Splunk bin instead of Splunk etc. So I'm gonna go to this one, and inside of this, I'm just gonna go to Splunk bin. All right, so we're inside the bin, and permission, of course, has been denied. So we need to do this whole thing, but I think we need to do it with a sudo at the start. Stopping, shutting down, please wait. This may take a few minutes. Okay, that looks like it's working. So once it restarts, I will come back to it. Actually, there's a question that we do have to answer. So while it's doing that, we're going to come down here and we're going to answer this question. So it says, if you create an app on Splunk named THM, what will be its full path on this machine? And the full path is going to be this. So it's going to be opt Splunk etc apps and then THM. That'll be the full path. Cool beans. And it says it's already okay. I think it restarted. Very good. So now we can restart the system. I'm gonna just close that, and I'm just gonna wipe that whole thing right here. And we're just going to press enter and restart our Splunk instance, baby. Nicely done. Excited that it actually worked and I was able to troubleshoot through those issues. Hopefully, if you have the same issues, now you know what to do. Okay, so moving on to event boundaries. Okay, so just to give you a quick review before we jump into the next task, I want you to know what we've done so far, because I stopped the recording, and then that was last night, and then I'm continuing the rest of the recording today, and I had to redo everything because the machines shut down, so on and so forth. So I think it's a good idea to review exactly what happened so that you really fully understand how we got to where we are, just in case there were some issues. So instead of going through the instructions here, I'm going to mostly go through the instructions here because I think it's very important to see how this all started, how it all happened. So the first part of it was to just go into the directory that Splunk was in. So it's the opt Splunk directory is where everything else is in. And to be able to start Splunk, you need to run it with a sudo command. So to be able to run it as root permissions, otherwise you're going to have errors. And pretty much that's kind of like the main theme of this whole thing. The through line of the whole thing is that you need to use sudo for pretty much everything that you do from this moment on. Otherwise, you're going to either get some kind of a permission error or it's not going to function properly. So to start it, I did sudo bin Splunk start, and then it started running, and then I went to the web portal right here and I created the application. That one's very easy, so you should already have the instructions for that. I'm not going to review that. Once the application was created, then we had a new directory inside of our apps directory. So you go opt Splunk etc apps, and then inside of that there's a new directory called data app, and that's the name of the app that we created. Inside of that data app, so to be able to do anything inside of this, you need to use sudo. So what I did was, first and foremost, I just listed to see what was inside it, and then we see that these are the directories that are inside of that. And then instead of going into, at first I was trying to just change the directory to bin directly, but I have to go into data app first. So that was the big thing that I didn't realize. So when I tried to change directory into the data app right here, when I tried to change directory into that, it gave me a permission denied error. So this is where the chmod command comes in, and you have to do this for everything from here on as well, and you got to do it with sudo. So sudo chmod x and w data app gives me the permissions to execute and write inside of the data app directory. And then once I did that, my permission of this was granted, and I could actually change the directory into the data app directory, and I got in there no problem. And so the first thing that I did was I also changed my permissions for the bin directory, because I know just from yesterday's experience that I didn't have any permissions on it, so I needed to change it. And so I just gave myself, again, execute and write permissions for the bin directory, and then I changed my directory into the bin directory. And when I went in here, I tried to touch a log file, because we have to just, not a log file, a Python file. It's like a sample Python file. And it gave me a permission denied error, so I had to use sudo again. So I did sudo touch sample logs, and it created it for me. I tried to do ls, it gave me a permission denied. So I did sudo ls, and it listed everything for me. So literally everything has to be done with sudo. So from here, I did also, again, a chmod. So give myself the execute and write permissions for the sample logs Python file. And then I did sudo nano sample logs, because if I didn't use sudo and I just tried to use nano, it wouldn't give me permission to write into the Python file. So I did that, and then I wrote a very basic Python script, which is this thing, literally print this onto the screen. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. So I just put that inside of the sample logs Python file, and then I ran it just to make sure that it's running, and lo and behold, it prints this is a sample log onto the screen. So everything was all good. And then I went back one, so I went up one directory, and I went inside of our cd default, or the default directory, which is the next piece that we would have to make our inputs configuration file. But again, because I didn't use sudo, it gave me permission denied, so I did sudo, and I gave myself the, actually, no, I'm sorry, this wasn't because I didn't give myself sudo permission, it's because I didn't have the execute and write permissions to get into the default folder. And so I had to give myself permission to execute and write into the default folder. Then I was able to change directory into the default folder. When I tried to list everything, permission denied. So I had to do sudo list, and then it listed everything inside of that folder. Then very similar command. So I did sudo touch inputs, and then sudo change mod, execute and write for the inputs configuration file. Then sudo nano inputs configuration file. And then once I was inside the inputs configuration file, I pasted this into it. You can either write it or you can just copy and paste this whole thing. And that's basically pulling the sample logs Python file, putting it inside the main index, and then running it every 5 seconds. That's all it does. Then once that was done, then we would go to the original Splunk bin, where the actual executable for Splunk is, to be able to restart Splunk. So once you do your configuration file and you do everything that you need to, you go to the original spot, which is opt Splunk bin, and then once I was inside the bin, I thought I could probably just run sudo Splunk restart, but it, for whatever reason, gave me that this is not available, so I used the full path for it. So sudo opt Splunk bin Splunk restart, and then it stopped Splunk and it restarted Splunk, and I think it's all good. So now it's ready to run again. And so this is the last step that we were on before moving on to the next piece for task 6. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew what was happening and how everything played out before we moved on to the next one. And so now we are going to go into task 6. Okay, so event breaking in Splunk refers to breaking raw data into individual events based on specified boundaries. Splunk uses event breaking rules to identify where one event ends and the next event begins. And so we're going to go and do this with a sample script that's been created for us. And we already have created our data app directory, so all of this you should already have. So if you're doing this by yourself, either in TryHackMe or on your own computer, you already should have the directory for the sample application that we created. And then there's a couple of scripts that have been provided to us by TryHackMe that are inside of our download scripts directory that we checked at the very beginning of this room. So what we're going to be running apparently is the VPN logs script. So it's a Python script, but they're not using a Python command. They're just doing ./VPN logs, and it's running. And so it says, let's say the client has a custom VPN application that generates VPN logs that contain information about the user, the VPN server, and the action performed on the connection, as shown on the output below. So we run this command, and then it's going to start generating some events. So the next thing that we will need to do is we need to first task is to configure Splunk to actually, so before we run the VPN thing, we have to configure our inputs configuration file to also take the VPN logs as one of those inputs. So the first task is to configure Splunk to ingest the logs. And so we're going to copy the VPN log script into the bin directory and open inputs configuration and write these lines. So I'm just going to be writing those as well inside of the inputs configuration on top of everything else that we had with the previous input that we created. So we're going to go inside of this, copy the into this. Yeah, okay, that's going to be all good. And then it tells run to run this every 5 seconds and send the output to the main index with the source type VPN logs and host value as VPN server. And it will look like this once you've actually done it. And then we're going to restart Splunk again. And then we should be able to now search something inside of the Splunk directory right here. So first and foremost, I'm going to go back into my data app bin to be able to configure my inputs. So let's go back there. Okay, so here we go. This is the configuration file location. So it's going to be data app default. And by now, all of these things should still work for you. You shouldn't need to make any permission changes or anything like that. As long as you use sudo, you should be able to do everything correctly. So now we're going to do sudo nano inputs configuration, and inside of this I am now going to paste this other one, which is going to be this. So there is that, and we're going to do that, or paste manually. There we go. Okay, so we got that. There we go. It wrote it perfect. And once we've done that, now we're going to again restart Splunk and then actually go through some kind of a search, I guess. So let's see if it'll actually work. And then so it says we are just as an example. So if we search head, so if we went to the search query and we just did index main source type VPN logs, because that's exactly what this is going to be doing, it'll give us some results, but it says we are getting the VPN logs after every 5 seconds, but can you observe the problem? It's evident that Splunk cannot determine the boundaries of each event and considers multiple events as a single event. So that's what this seems right here. So these are all running as one event instead of individual events. By default, Splunk breaks the event after carriage return. So then we need to now go and fix the event boundary. So these are the sample events. So it says we need to fix the event boundary to configure it to break the events. In this case, we have to make some changes to the props configuration file. First, we will create a regex to determine the end of the event, and these are some samples. So to create a regex, we can use a website called Reg 101. It's actually a very useful website to create a regex pattern. If we look closely, all events end with the terms disconnect or connect. We can use this information to create a regex pattern disconnect or connect as shown below. So you just paste this inside of here. Okay, so I mean, there's something called regex101.com, which I think should do the same thing. So if I do basically what was there, disconnect, how did they create it? Disconnect pipe connect. So disconnect pipe connect, and that's it. And then I'm gonna copy this sample log right here and go and paste it in here. Okay, so there it is. So it's actually working, disconnect, connect, so on and so forth. So it's working. So that is our regular expression, very simple. So once we have this, we're going to create a props configuration file in the default directory within the data app and add the following lines, and then restart Splunk, and that should be the end of it. So I am very glad that I did not do this immediately, or because it takes some time to restart. So first I'm going to now create a props dot configuration file. Then I'm going to change the permissions of that to give me some permissions to write and execute like that, and then sudo nano props. There we go. And inside of this, we're going to paste our piece right here. Cool. And then write it. Very good. And exit out. Okay, great. So now I am going to restart Splunk. Okay, there you go. Now, while that is restarting, let's see what we can do here. So what configuration file is used to specify parsing rules, and that is the props configuration file. What regex is used in the above case to break the events, and that is this regex right here. So there we go. Now, which stanza is used in the configuration to force Splunk to break the event after the specified pattern? Yeah, it's must break after. That is the stanza that they used here. Must break after. And there we go. And if we want to disable line merging, what will be the value of the stanza should line merge? And that should be false. So if we want to disable it, we are going to have a false value of should line merge. So if you want to disable it, that would be it. But in this case, it's enabled. And then we're going to break after that. Okay. It kind of makes sense, right? So it's like we're working on the VPN logs portion specifically. It says should line merge, you're gonna have true, but you have to break each line after this shows up. So after disconnect shows up, create a new one. After connect shows up, create a new one. That's what I take away from it. So now that we have all of these things, I should now be able to go back to my Splunk instance, and let's restart our Splunk instance. There we go. And now we actually have events that have populated, and every 5 seconds it runs. This is a sample log, so that's been all good. So let's see if it still works on the connections and disconnections. So maybe I can do source VPN logs. Source. Do we have multiple sources? No, we only have one source actually. So we only have the test log source. So I need for this to actually have a new source. And I restarted it already. So if I've restarted it, that means that it should be taking all of the new stuff as well. All right, so here is why it was not working. So this was not a piece of the instructions that they gave us, and this is something that I had to kind of troubleshoot. So from the instructions here, it says that it's going to be running this script, right? This our configuration file. Once we run this, it's going to be running that script, but the original location of the script is not inside of our binary. It's inside of the download script location. So what you have to do is you need to copy it from the download script location and put it inside of the data app binary directory, so that when it actually runs this every 5 seconds, it has this script that exists in there. Otherwise it won't work. And originally when I ran it, the script wasn't in there. So I went inside of my terminal, very, very simple. And I literally just copied it. So I made sure I use copy, or sudo, excuse me. I made sure I use sudo. And I was inside the download script folder. So I ran the script when I was in here. It worked fine. So inside of this script folder, I did sudo copy VPN logs. And then I copied it into the data app binary folder. And as soon as I did that, I noticed that we have events that are coming here, because prior to that it was only showing the thing events, the original one from the test log, which is all of the stuff that just I'll show you because it's going to populate every freaking 5 seconds. So it was only showing this, right? So it would only show this every 5 seconds. This is a sample log. This is a sample log. So this was obviously not useful to us. So if we just change it to all of the sources and in real time it'll give us every 5 seconds some new events, and these are going to be the VPN events as well as the this is a sample log, right? So you'll get all of them running every 5 seconds. And so that's basically the reason why it wasn't showing previously, because the VPN log script did not exist inside of our data app binary folder. And I'm guessing that we're going to have to do that every single time, where we have to move the script from the download script folder to the data app binary folder in order for all of this stuff to work. So that is the reason why it didn't work the first time I ran it. And just in case you're using this room as well, if you run across that problem, now you know what's going on. Now let's move on to the parsing multi-line events. All right, so now we have multi-line events that we have to parse, and different logs have their own ways of generating logs. So what if a log source generates event logs that comprise of multiple lines? One such example is the Windows event logs. And in order to understand how multi-line events can be handled, we'll use the event logs generated from the script authentication logs. This sample event is shown below. So same thing, right? So we have to put it inside of the bin folder. Very, very important. Now they actually tell us to copy it from the scripts directory into the bin folder. I wonder if they said it in the last one too. I don't think they did. We'll use the Python script from directory as shown below. No, so see, the thing is, they don't tell us. Let's focus on the VPN. Yeah, they don't tell us to copy it. So that is something that I wish they would have told us. But anyways, so copy it from the scripts directory into the binary folder of the data app and add the following lines in the inputs configuration file. Then we're going to go search through it, and then we'll see that these things are separated when they shouldn't be separated. So this should be one full event, right? And that should be one full event. So identifying the problem. So if we observe, we will see that Splunk is breaking the two-line event into two different events and is unable to determine the boundaries. In order to fix this, we can use the different stanzas in the configuration file. A few times after running the script, you can observe that each event starts with the term authentication, and that's the start of the event. And we can do the break only before stanza and see if it'll fix the problem. So this will be the new props configuration stanza. So break only before authentication. So only break before that. So if you go and you run that, it won't show. Oh, no, it does. Okay, there you go. There it is. Now it's showing it. Okay, great. So it's now breaking only before authentication is in there. So this one's actually pretty simple. Very, very straightforward. So what I'm going to do is two things. I'm going to first copy the script from its location where it is right here, and I'm going to put it inside of the authentication log. We're going to sudo copy the authentication logs into our opt Splunk etc apps data app bin folder, and there it is. And then I have to go inside of that bin folder, and I wonder if I need to just restart Splunk again. Let me see if I need to. Did they say that we got to restart it? I'll run it and see if it shows up. I wonder if it'll actually show up. It'll be cool if I don't have to restart Splunk, but maybe we do. So then I have to go inside of the, where am I going? I see. So cd etc apps data app bin, and there we are. And so in here we have our authentication logs, sample logs, VPN logs. Oh, so it's not that. It's actually the default. My bad. So it's going to be inside of the default. Yeah, that's where our props. There you go. That's where the props configuration file is. So let me just bring this up a little bit. And then so what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this inside of the props configuration file. Actually, if I need to, yeah, I need to put that inside props configuration, but then I also need to, and it says I do need to restart Splunk. So I need to update the inputs configuration with this, and I need to update props configuration with the other one. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go sudo nano inputs configuration, and here it is, and we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it. Come on. There we go. So that is our new input configuration, and all good. Wrote 19 lines. And then we're going to configure props configuration, and we're going to add a new configuration for that, which is going to be for authentication logs. And if you notice that it has it right here as the rule, it says authentication log, which is the thing that we created here. So source type authentication log, or auth logs, you have to put that at the very top so that it knows what it's applying this new rule to. And then should line merge? Yes, it should merge. Break only before authentication, and then you just put this regex pattern. And I mean, honestly, I thought it was going to be much more complicated regex patterns that we would deal with, but it seems pretty simple. So there we go, just like that, and write that and exit that. And now we are going to go and restart Splunk. So there we go, and the restart Splunk command, I wonder if I could just run it as I'm here, just by clicking up a couple of times. There we go, come on, there we go, sudo, that's the command. Sudo opt bin Splunk restart, press enter, and voila, it's gonna restart Splunk. And then we will now see in the background, as soon as it restarts, because it's gonna restart, and then this whole thing will also reset. And as that happens, we should now be able to see some authentication events taking place. So while that restart is taking place, let's answer these questions. So which stanza is used to break the event boundary before a pattern is specified? And that is going to be the break only before, right here. So I'm gonna just copy this real quick, and boom, shakalaka. And then which regex pattern is used to identify the event boundaries in the above case? And it is this regex pattern. Easy money. Cool. Okay, the restart has finished, but I think I need to actually like reload this thing to make sure that it does, because I only have 2 source types here still. So I'm going to just go back to the very beginning, 10, 10, 71, 57, 8000, or I could have just pressed enter on that. And then let's go into our data app, and inside of the data app, we're just going to do a basic index equals main search, and we're going to change it from last 24 hours to all-time real-time to get real-time results. And now we're going to wait, and there we go. So now we have 3 source types here, and right here we see authentication is here, we see the disconnect connect stuff is here. If we go low enough, we should be able to see even the one, this is a sample log, so this is our original Python file, and then we had the VPN logs, and then now we have the authentication logs that's also running. And we have officially 3 source types, and our source types are the VPN, the authentication logs, and then the test log. So looks great, it is working, and I am very happy with that. So now we can move on to masking sensitive data. So this is the part where we have to actually cover up sensitive data. So for example, the purchase details that includes credit card information, we need to be able to mask that information so that it doesn't show it inside of our results right here. Because if you can see right here, it's actually showing the results. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Let's start from the very beginning. But I mean, I think you already can understand what the whole thing behind this is. So let's run that. All right, masking sensitive fields like credit card numbers or PII, which is personal identifiable information. It could be somebody's social security number or something like that. But PII specifically is for the PCI DSS standard, and HIPAA is for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So there's a lot of different compliance regulations that you have to adhere to when you're working in the real world, right? So in this particular case is going to be our last script, which is the purchase detail script that's inside our download scripts folder, and this is what it's going to show us, which is the credit card information. So if we run this and put it inside of inputs configuration file, it'll show all of their information inside of the actual results of Splunk, which is not a good thing. So we have two problems. Number one, we need to hide credit card information that's being added to each event, and also fix the event boundaries, because it's showing all of the events in, or all of the purchases in one single event. So that's what's really important. The regex, now they're giving us a different website, which is regex 101, which is exactly where I ended up at. We need to create a pattern to identify the end boundary of each event, and that's what this does. So this is a little bit complicated, but it's not. So D is technically a placeholder for anything, so any kind of number or letter or anything like that. And then it ends with an actual dot right here, right? So this is anything that's outside of these backslashes is the literal character that you're going to be putting inside of the regex pattern, and everything that's inside of these backslashes is the formula for the pattern. So when you do D and then put inside of these squiggly brackets 4, it's saying that 4 characters that are going to be followed by a literal 0, which is what we see right here. There's 4 characters followed by a literal 0, and that's going to be our break only after, I would say, right? So must break after right here. Must break after that pattern shows up, and that's going to be the thing. And that's the first one. So when you do that, now you see that the events have separated, and they're only showing one at a time, which is great. Now what we need to do is we need to fix it so that it masks the sensitive information. And for that, we're going to be doing setcmd. It's a configuration setting that we can put inside of our props configuration file to modify or transform data during the indexing. And it allows us to apply regular expression-based situations, or regular expression-based substitutions on the incoming data before indexing it. setcmd setting uses the syntax and functionality of Unix sed command. And the brief explanation is setcmd. Basically, you put the you open the props configuration file, you create or locate a stanza for the data source that you want to modify, and you add that setting and specify the regular expression pattern and the replacement string using the syntax. So basically, the source type is going to be whatever the data source is. In our case, is going to be the purchases, and then setcmd my field, and then the old value followed by the new value. So this is going to have the old value, and then this is going to have the new value. But that's going to be done with regular expressions, as you can see right here. So the credit card information regex is going to look like this, right? So essentially what they want is like the first few numbers, I guess, are going to stay there. And then once you have those first few numbers, the rest of them are going to be replaced or masked is what we will have. So what we do first is we create the same pattern that we had before, except now we're separating them by dashes, because you see that there's a literal dash in the middle of all of these. So you have, /D, 4 of those things, and then dash, /D, 4 of those things, and then dash, so on and so forth, followed by a period. So it will take this specific pattern right here, followed by that period. It's going to take the last 3 sets of numbers in the entire thing. So you have 16, so it's going to take the last 12 digits. And then you're going to replace that old value with a new value. And so since we have s/old value and then /new value. So s/ and then this is the regex pattern for the old value, and then / new value, which is what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replacing them with a bunch of x's. So you take the old value of it, which is these last things, and they're going to be replaced with x's. So when the results come up, you'll see that this is the credit card number followed by a bunch of x's, followed by a bunch of x's, which is actually really cool. Like, honestly, I thought it would be more complicated than this, but it seems to be pretty simple and pretty easy to do. So first I'm going to modify the configuration file, and then after modifying the configuration file, I'm going to modify the props file, and then from there we should be able to run it, and we should be able to get the results that we want. So let us do that now. Okay, so I transferred the purchase details already into our bin folder inside of the data app. Now what we need to do is we need to go inside of our default directory and we need to modify our two configuration files that we got. So the first one is the inputs configuration file. And inside of this, we're just going to add at the very end of it, we will add this new piece that is going to pull the information from the scripts. So boom. Oh, I keep doing Control V, but I have to do that. Okay, so there you go. And it's written perfect. Now we can exit that. And now we're going to nano the props configuration file. And there's that. And so inside of that, we have to put our new regex pattern. So two things that we got to do. And I think they combined it. So I'm not sure. Purchase logs should line merge. Okay, there we go. So this is what the combined thing looks like right here. So we're going to, and I can't copy paste this because it's an image, so I got to actually type this thing out. So I'm going to do this a little bit. I'm going to cheat it so we can have both of them on the same screen. Maybe I can pull this right here. Okay, there we go. That's cool. Hopefully you can see this, but I mean, it's right there. It's literally right on the screen. If you want to pause it, you can do that and zoom in like that. It's totally up to you, but fairly simple. It should be really easy to do. So I'm just going to type this out real quick. Okay, so just got to make sure that I did this right. I feel like I did. So s//d4 dash backslash d4 dash backslash d4 and then / dash quad x / g. Okay, I think that's good. And I'm going to write this, and that's going to be our new props configuration file. And I think that's it, right? From here, I should be able to just restart Splunk. So let's just run our restart command real quick. There we go. And while that runs, let's just answer these questions. So which stanza is used to break the event after the specified regex pattern? And it's going to be the must break after. I believe that was the one. Must break after. And then what is the pattern of using said CMD in the props configuration to mask or replace the sensitive fields? All right, so this is it actually. So they wanted this one specifically, s old value new value. It's pretty much the same as this, and it's pretty much the same as this, but the specific syntax they wanted is that. So that's that. Our server has restarted, so now I can go here and let's go from the beginning and just restart this whole thing. There we go. Look at that. Number one, each purchase has been broken down into its own event, and number two, the actual credit card information has been protected. That is cool. I am very, very excited about. I love when things work, man. There's just something about it that's like really, really powerful. And yeah, we're almost done. So the very last piece is extracting custom fields from these things. So let's see what we can do with that. Okay, from a SOC analyst point of view, we would often encounter logs with either custom log sources where not all the fields are extracted by the SIM automatically, or we're required to extract custom fields to improve the analysis. In that case, we need a way to extract custom fields from the logs. To demo this, we have an example. So we're going to go back to the VPN logs, and the output that we're getting looks like this. Okay, so you have the date, the time, the user, the server, the action, the host, source VPN, source type, and that's basically repeated every single time. Okay. It's clear that none of the fields are extracted automatically, and we cannot perform any analysis on these events until fields like username, server, and action are extracted. So that's kind of one of the big things that usually what it does for you is that on the interesting fields, and this is assuming that there are no other interesting fields, like it's assuming that this is the end of all of the fields that it's extracted for you. usually it would have something like that. So it usually would have user or username here, or the server or whatever. It would typically have that for you. If you look at any of the other Splunk videos that we did, the interesting field section is very, very long. So yeah, right here, like I'm just looking at it, it hasn't pulled any of that information. It literally only has these things. So we have to extract new fields, right? So to be able to do that, we're going to go through our own situation. So now, again, creating a regex pattern for this. So it says, let's first go through the process of extracting usernames and putting them under the field as username. And we can do it like this. So this is the sample result that we got. And we're going to create a regex pattern that says user, so the actual word user, colon, followed by this pattern. And this is a little bit tricky here. So for me to even be able to understand what this means, I'm going to go to Gemini, which is the Google AI, and I'm going to ask it to explain that for me. So let's try that. All right, so here's what we got from Gemini. So the provided regex pattern user yada 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 matches a username following the format user. So this part, the very first part, is a literal string that needs to be matched exactly. \s matches a single white space character, for example, space, tab, new line, etc. So this is a white space character, so \s for space, basically. And then inside of the parentheses is another literal string, it seems. Is it? Where is it? I don't see anything that's like that. So it says parentheses, colon, \s is another literal string requiring an exact match consisting of a colon. I see. Well, I mean, it doesn't have that. So this one isn't in our specific thing. So it's just, I think it's just trying to teach us something. So this is literal. This represents a space, right? This would be if you put a literal string requiring an exact match consisting of a colon. So there's a colon before it, followed by a space. That's what that means. So it's a combination, I think. So it's when you put anything inside of a parentheses, you're looking for this full combination of things. Parentheses create a capturing group. Exactly. Okay. So once we have that, then we're going to look at this piece right here. So \w\s inside of the square brackets followed by a plus sign. So it defines what can be captured within the group. So the character class matching a word character \w or a white space character \s. I see. And the plus quantifier matches the preceding character class word space or one more time. So in simpler terms, the pattern searches for the text user followed by a sequence of one or more word characters, letters, numbers, and underscores, and spaces, capturing that sequence in a group. So the pattern would match user John Doe or capture John Doe in the group. I would also match user another name, capture that. It wouldn't match username Alice because it's a username, so it has to be user, and potential use cases, etc. Okay, so I see. So basically, what it's doing is it's putting this whole thing inside of a group, meaning that it should be, once inside the parentheses, it means that all of these things have to match together. \w would be a word character, some kind of a letter or space or underscore, something like that. Not a space, excuse me, like a letter, underscore, something like that. And then \s would be a space character, or white space, an empty space. So you have user, literally user, followed by a space, and then followed by this group, and that would create our character here. So that's what allows us to actually be able to find these usernames like this. So now we need to create and update the transforms.configuration file. So in the default folder, we're going to create this, and this is what it's going to be. So it's going to be for the VPN custom fields, and the regex is going to be this. So this is going to be the regex pattern that we have, and the format is going to be, this is what we want the output to look like. And then write meta is going to be true, and I got to figure out what that meant. But that's basically what it will look like here. and we've created the VPN custom fields in the pattern to pull the usernames, mention the field as a username, and ask to capture the first group by referring it as a $1. So capture the first group by deferring it as $1. So I would say that would be the first group. That's what that means. And then save the configuration and move to the next step. Then updating our props configuration file to transform the VPN using the VPN custom fields that we created inside of our transform configuration file. So inside of the VPN log, because we already have a rule for the VPN logs, and it's going to say must break after disconnect, connect, all that. So we're just going to add another piece right here that says transform the VPN, and then creating and updating a fields configuration file. So same thing, it's going to be inside of the default folder, and the username is going to be indexed to true. It means that we're telling Splunk to extract this field at the indexed time. So username indexed true. And that's the field that we just created here, right? So we just created this field, username. We created that. So now we want it to actually be indexed and show inside of our specific fields. Once that's done, you can now go and update the full thing and get a bunch of different types of results, right? So instead of just doing a user and then just extracting the user, we can do the server and extract the server, and then we can do the action as well, it seems. So updating the transforms configuration file, you would have username was going to be field 1, server is going to be field 2, action is going to be field 3, and then updating the fields configuration file, we're going to add those, and then we're going to restart Splunk, and that should be it. So the full thing is going to be this. This is going to be the full regex pattern that we're going to have, and so this one we already know what it is, and then followed by a comma and a dot, because that's literally the thing right here. So that's the full pattern, right? You have the full pattern followed by a comma and then plus then another literal piece right here, server dot, and then plus, and it's going to follow so on and so forth. So very similar to the things, and then we should be able to get new fields right here, including the server and the username and the action and all that. So I am going to start from the very top here. I'm going to go inside of our configuration file. I've already transferred everything, so I don't need to transfer anything. I'm going to just stay inside of here, which is our default folder. And inside of the default folder is we're going to be doing most of our work today. So the first thing is we're going to create a transforms configuration file, and then we're going to create a fields configuration file, and then we're going to update our props configuration file. So we are going to go from here. So I'm going to do sudo ls just to see what we got in here, and let me kind of zoom in. Let me see. I feel like it might be easier for you if I did this. So if I open this up, cool beans, and now I can zoom in here and give you like a good view of everything. So we are going to, first and foremost, we are going to create a transforms configuration file. Then we're going to change the permission of that. And now I should be able to write into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the full pattern of the regex user and the format and everything. So let me go, and this is the first portion, so I'm just going to copy this one. Instead of writing it out, I'm going to copy this. And it'll start like this. So it'll be VPN custom fields. That'll be that, and then the regex is going to equal this piece, and then we have the format is going to equal username followed by 2 colons and a $, then server followed by 2 colons, $, and the number 2, and an action number 3. That's what that is. And then we're going to do write meta, and that's going to be true. So that is our transforms configuration file. So now we have the transforms configuration file. Great. So what we're going to now do is we're going to update our fields configuration file. So I gotta create one. So touch fields conf and then sudo chmod xw fields conf, like so. And now nano, and we're going to add a couple of fields here. So username is going to be indexed true. Then we have server will also be indexed true, and then we will have action. There we go. All right, so we got the fields configuration, we got the transforms configuration. I do need to update the props configuration file and add a piece to it, sudo nano props configuration. And for the VPN logs, there's going to be a new line that says transform VPN equals VPN custom fields, and that should be it. I think that's it. So let me just double check and make sure. I believe that is all I had to do for this. So what we are now going to do is we are going to restart, and now Splunk is going to restart. While that happens, we're going to answer our questions here. So it says extract the username field from the source type purchase logs we worked on earlier. How many users were returned in the username field? Okay. Extract credit card values from how many credit cards were, oh, I see. Damn it, I should have done that. I should have done that as well, man. Now I restarted the whole thing and I gotta go and do the whole freaking thing for these two. All right, fine. So what do we gotta do? I gotta extract the username field from purchase logs. So it would be inside of the transforms file, right? So if we run purchase details, it will show us this, and the format looks like that. So in the VPN log, there was a colon that followed user, but in this case, it's just a space. So user Jane, user Michael, so on and so forth. So we got user followed by a space. That's basically the pattern that we need for the purchase logs. And the credit card values from the source type purchase logs. So it's going to be, I would say, credit card like this. It's going to be credit card followed by the information here. And then it's going to say how many unique credit card numbers are returned against the credit card field. So those are the two things that we want to pull from, and it's all going to be from purchase details, so that's fine. So I'm going to now create it as a new file for that. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so here is what we ended up with. So let me kind of zoom in a little bit here. First thing we did was we modified the transforms configuration file, and I added a purchase custom fields section, very similar to VPN custom fields. I just added purchase custom fields. The regex pattern, so this one was literally the only thing extra here that it had was the colon, and the follow up of it was very similar to this. This piece right here, this is what I got from Gemini. It basically just means that it'll save all of the information in here into a little group called username, and that's all that means. I think it would have been possible to do this with or without this. So I don't know. I don't think this is even necessary, but I just copied and pasted it in here. So it does user followed by a space, and then whatever the username would be, made a purchase with credit card, and then this is the credit card information. And so same thing, right? So inside of this pattern, inside of the parentheses, we have the information that's been saved to a credit card group, and it's the same thing, D4, 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 etc. And all of that has been saved here. And so we extracted those two groups into the username as well as credit card. Those are the two fields that we extracted from this, and then we added meta true, same thing, pretty much the same exact thing as this one, except we just are saving the username as, again, usernames, and then it's all going to go to the purchase custom fields. So it's going to be separate from this group because this is the VPN custom fields and this is the purchase custom fields. And so where we declare that is going to be inside of the the props configuration file. So inside the props configuration file, we have the purchase log section, and then we did transform purchase custom fields, right? So, and then from here, we just go into the fields, where is it? The fields configuration file, and we just added credit card as a new field, and that's going to be indexed as well. And all of this stays pretty much the same because we already had one for username, so it's going to index usernames, but the other one was going to index under the custom fields for the purchase logs. So this one is going to have the purchase logs custom fields coming from the transform purchase custom fields. And apart from that, I think that's basically all I needed to do here. So this is the moment of truth right here. I really hope that I don't have too many errors or any errors really, but I'm going to restart Splunk one more time, and I'm going to go here and see if we actually pull that information. Honestly, I feel like it should be fine. I think it'll actually get me all the information that we're looking for. And yeah, literally moment of truth. Okay, here we go. Updating to all-time real time. We are going to now get some new fields. Do we have the new fields? We have the username, we have punctuation, index, action, Splunk server timestamp. There's 10 more fields. There's no credit card field. Okay, so it didn't pull from the purchase logs, and the instructions that Gemini gave me were actually interesting. So it said inside of the fields configuration file, you want to do purchase logs, and then you want to do indexed, extracted, username, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is, instead of modifying the way that I did before, and I feel like I probably have to restart Splunk again, but whatever, we'll just do it. We're going to go into the fields configuration file, and instead of doing credit card indexed true, I'm going to change this to purchase logs, and then I'm going to index all purchase logs like that, and then I'm going to indexed, extracted, username, and credit card. So let me see. So there's that, and we'll see if that works. We're going to restart Splunk one more time. Okay, gang, unfortunately, no matter what I tried a lot of different variations of this, and I mean, I didn't have any luck. I changed the transforms file multiple times. I changed the props file multiple times because I thought maybe it had something to do with the props file. I changed the fields file multiple times, and still I was left with no data actually being pulled into Splunk. And this is kind of one of those things that's been kind of nagging away at me. I've been sitting here for a good 45 minutes trying to figure this out, and I am not able to figure it out. So I got the information just from counting, and yeah, this is the answers for you guys right here. We almost had a perfect run, and I'm really bummed about it, but I'm running out of time, so it's been a little bit challenging to get the end of the results right here. But I really do welcome you to create your own videos on this section, or maybe drop a comment in the comment section below to explain if you got success at this and if you were able to pull this off, because unfortunately I wasn't able to pull it off, and I feel kind of embarrassed. But there have been a handful of times where I've done these videos and I was stumped and I wasn't able to get the answer, and yeah, and this is kind of what it ends up at. So if you do find the answer, please let me know. If you figure out how to pull the data so that it actually shows it up on Splunk as one of the fields that has been extracted, please let me know. It would be very useful, very helpful for me specifically, because I really do want to continue learning, and I think it would be helpful for the community as well if you're able to pull that information. That being said, we have wrapped this room officially. So congratulations if you made it all the way to the end. I am very, very proud of you. I'm proud of myself for the most part, with the exception of the last little bit, but I think I was able to pull some good information out of this, and I learned a lot myself, so hopefully you did as well. If you were able to learn something from this video today, if you've gotten any value from this channel, I do invite you to like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and maybe even drop a comment. The comment section is always very live and active, and we're going to be launching a Discord channel very soon, like very, very soon. I've already set it up. I'm just trying to make sure that I add all the extra benefits for people to join the Discord channel and get a bunch of downloads and cheat sheets and scripts that I've written, and a lot of different things that you can definitely use for your journey into security analysis and ethical hacking. So would love to have you as a part of the community. If you have not already, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell, and definitely drop a comment. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. Love, peace, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you, and I will see you in the next room later.